Hey, I'm Bo.
This is Wilson.
We are Malignant Altar, and you're experiencing Poppitt's Corner.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Poppitt's Corner. A very special one today. I'd like to bring back on the show the drummer extraordinaire. He's played in a lot of different projects. Pretty much every thrash band nowadays has this gentleman in it. But my good buddy, Mr. Carlos Cruz, is joining us. Thanks so much, sir, again for giving me a compliment of your time. And
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Oh yeah, always do.
How you been?
Excellent. Yeah, doing a hell of a lot better now that just able to keep busy regardless of what's going on in the world. Always keeping positive, always moving forward.
So before we get into the Mantic Ritual aspect of your career,
Sure.
Can I just ask kind of what you've been doing a little bit behind the scenes and kind of where you're at musically speaking? Are you working on other projects or?
All the time. Yeah, so basically over the summer it was getting everything ready for the Mantic stuff. So then after that was kind of handled for a bit, then I switched gears into doing more of a studio work, which I'm always keeping busy with, but there was a lot of session work that came up. So I've been working out of it's called West Valley Studios with producers Howard Benson, who's done everything from Motorhead, Sepultura into a lot of pop stuff as well, and the Warbringer producer Mike Plotnikoff, who produced Weapons of Tomorrow and Woe to the Vanquish. So they always call me back to do session work. So if they need a drummer on a project, if they need a guitarist, bassist, etc. on a different project. So September was full of that. And since then, it's either I was, work for hire session player, or I started doing my own thing out of my own studio in LA for Ohm, Chris Poland, things like that. But since then, I've been busy. I produced a band out of the OC called Tornadic. So we did a 4-song EP. So I was able to engineer and produce that. Then I did all the post-production work of mixing and mastering. And then that followed up with a band out of LA that I'm working with now called Early Moods. So old friends of mine, and they're more of a doom, like traditional heavy metal band. So, very rooted in, Pentagram and Trouble and bands like that. So it's going well, so we're still on the recording and production end of that, but then we'll move into the post-production, mixing, mastering, all that stuff.
Sure. Now, how is Presence doing? Is that still a project that you guys are doing with your buddies, or?
That was like a period of time just to have fun. Everybody was local to the San Fernando Valley. These are my oldest, brothers from high school that I've known for 15 plus years. So unfortunately, it hasn't been active. I mean, the music's there, but now that I'm getting a hell of a lot more comfortable with the studio environment, I definitely want to make a record. I mean, there's like a 4-song demo from back in the day, a live demo as well. That was a lot of fun. But it's great music. It's instrumental, but we played a few shows, and out of the few shows, everybody was like, yeah, you guys are like an evil Pink Floyd. And I was like, that's really cool, actually.
I love it. Yeah, it's almost like an Osric Tentacles. I get that kind of a vibe from it if you're into like the proggy jazz fusion kind of vibes. But it's a great project. That's why I was curious how that thing was going. But
definitely,
if you're ready, man. So this time I kind of want to discuss the Mantic Ritual side of things, and you guys are set to release Crusader, which is a 7-inch single. So if you don't mind, I'd just love to get started on that and just touch, kind of get in all the nooks and crannies of that this specific release. So I'm just kind of curious right off the bat, just how you specifically joined Mantic Ritual.
So this dates back to when the band first came out to LA in like 2006, to play the whiskey with all of our peers, Fueled by Fire, Merciless Death, and all that scene. So what ended up happening was, we would run into each other just mutually on the street, play gigs together, and it led up to a point in time when I was working with Warbringer, where we were mid-tour, and this is the first time where we were going to have a lineup change when I was in the band. So this is right off of Worlds Torn Asunder, which is 10 years old now. So we were just going into 2012, and Adam Carroll decided to step down because he had a couple serious family matters that needed to, be tended to. So then at that point in time, Jeff Potts and Ben Motzman were living in LA. So immediately, those are the first two people I thought of in order, if I needed somebody, I knew they were there. I knew they were available. I knew that they were great players and I could count on them wholeheartedly. So within that early portion of 2012, that's what ended up happening. Andy Locks of that World's Torn Asunder lineup also had a emergency vacate mid-tour for health reasons. So that's when I flew Ben out to help Warbringer. And then shortly after that, we had a big European tour over the summer, and that's when we brought in Potts. So there was a point in time where I needed help. I needed players I could trust, knew that were capable of handling the material. So that, no questions asked. They did me that favor. They came out, we rehearsed, did plenty of tours together, grew that relationship, and then we moved into the Empire's collapse era of Warbringer. So that involved, a closer connection in songwriting. It was a little, divided at that time. It was like I had my material, John Locks had his, Potts and Motzman had theirs. So, I mean, obviously, that record for being hell of a, not a misstep, but just, a change in direction with variety in songwriting and, exploring and experimenting, what Warbringer could do, because up until that point, it was pretty straightforward, extreme metal, but then you're getting elements of like progressive stuff, black metal, pop punk, like you're getting all these different elements that maybe you wouldn't have found on the first 3 records, but that's because the songwriting is so varied because of the different players. So that's where like our relationship really like solidified. And they were there for me. I needed them. And then obviously myself and Locks and Potts and Motzman soon obviously left Warbringer for a period of time before I came back and we started to rebuild this thing. But from that, more recently, Jeff and Ben were still here in LA. And then Jeff moved up to Seattle where he's currently living. Ben is still here in LA doing his thing. So we've always just kind of kept in touch. And one day out of the blue, Ben calls me and he's like, hey, man, I've been speaking to Dan. I've been speaking to Jeff. Everybody's kind of interested in getting this back together. But the initial goal was to get the original lineup. So it would have been Dan and Adam, their original drummer. So the story that was told to me was that, they all spoke to Adam seriously. They wanted to give him time. It took, they gave him a couple months to kind of consider it, get back on the kid and see if he was interested in rejoining the group, but it just wasn't into him. It just wasn't like honest for him to do that anymore. So that was it. Basically, what I was told is Ben said as soon as he got the answer and hung up the phone with Adam, he immediately called me next, and they were there for me. So that's basically the long and short of it. They were there for me, and when I needed them, and we did the Warbringer thing. So they needed my help. Of course, I'm there for them. Like it's just keeping it solid.
Now, how long ago was this? Because was this during the 2013 Thrasho era, or is this most recently in like the last 2 to 3 years?
This is actually within the past like couple months. This is honestly, this whole thing started within 2021. Like the rebuilding of it and us kind of talking about it and getting things moving and all of that. So yeah, basically that whole 2013 thrash show was just kind of like a last hurrah. Ben, Jeff, and I were already doing the Warbringer thing and working on the record. So we had a studio out here in North Hollywood that we were writing and rehearsing. And we got the offer to do thrash show as Mantic. And I was already there, you know what I mean? And I knew the songs and I was a fan. Execution is one of my favorite records to come out of this scene. It was fantastic. And that was it. It was just a one-off kind of sign off. And it's been 8+ years since that show. But yeah, it was something that everybody, I guess, missed, wanted to do. So now it's a bit more of a lax situation where, everybody has their careers outside of music. Or what have you, relationships, marriages, things of that sort. So they're we're pretty much taking it with the mindset of like, this is a passion, you know what I mean? And we'll do what we can to record new music, but anything more serious than that is kind of in the works. But definitely new music was always the goal.
Sure. Now let me go off at this point too, because I'm going to show the album cover, and I kind of want to get some backstory on it. Where what was your guys' thinking, and how big of a part do you actually play in Mantic Ritual right off the bat? Because I know you play a big part in Warbringer, but how much do you actually play a part in Mantic compared to Warbringer?
For the first time, I am like thankful I'm just a drummer. You know what I mean? So this is all Dan collectively with Ben and Jeff. So this is like their thing. It's rooted in them. So basically, I do my parts. I'm glad to hop onto the production end of things. When I need to lay down drums, I take care of all that. When we need to do bass, I lay down all that. Send them all the tracks. So it's all remote, actually. When we work out of LA, it's just Ben and I that are out here. So him and I can get together, go over tunes, go over parts, rehearse, and then actually record everything and then send it up to the other guys. That way they can do their parts. Dan pretty much has the majority of the creative control when it comes down to obviously all the aesthetic. You know what I mean? So he worked closely with the artist to get what he wanted out of this artwork, and he's basically the guy there working with his team of on the production end of things in terms of like photography, getting all his friends and himself involved, and as well as the post-production stuff like mixing and mastering and things of that sort. So he's in there. So the reason it sounds the way it sounds, the reason it looks the way it looks is all Dan.
Gotcha. And because I was just going to branch off this question where it's like, because I again, we know that you're primarily, your main baby is Warbringer at this point.
Sure.
But being in a I wouldn't say Mantic sounds like Warbringer, but the differentiates. I mean, there's a similar style. So I was just kind of always curious how you separate the writing styles with Mantic and Warbringer to where they're not going to sound the same. Do you know what I mean? Because I know you write for Warbringer primarily. So I was just curious how much you actually write in Mantic now.
Nothing. I basically contribute, if it's completely necessary, maybe arrangement ideas. But ultimately, no, like Jeff, Ben, and Dan are really good about doing pre-production themselves, demoing out things, sending files back and forth. Like they've got it down. So I'm just happy to like, cool, this is the final version of the tune. This is the arrangement. Here's some scratch vocals, scratch guitar, all this stuff. Click tracks. Like they're really meticulous with all of their pre-production work. So basically they send me the songs, I lay them down, I send them back, and that's kind of the long and short of it. So really I'll always do like a pre-pro, like raw drum take, send it back to them, get their input, you know what I mean, on the performance of the drums, and then we'll talk about that and dissect that, and then I'll go in and lay down the tracks for real. So basically, yeah, I don't touch any of the composition and riff writing or anything like that. I'm happy to just be the drummer for once.
You kind of almost have to do that at this point. No offense, just because you got to kind of separate the two camps, as it were, with the writing. So going off of this point, I would like to get your input on this. Was there a kind of a sense of pressure within the Mantic Ritual camp to not only make new music, but because a lot of people love the Executioner record, like myself, and as you stated earlier. So was there a sense of pressure to write new music and being like, it's been so long since Executioner was actually released, it's kind of like we have to follow that up, or was it a majority of like, it's been so long since we've written, let's just see kind of what happens and then let's release it and see what's going to come of it?
A little bit of both. There are certain moments in some of the new material that were written with that original lineup way back when, and there were some demos with that original lineup that were not a part of the Executioner record. So there is some new songs that are actually as old as the Executioner stuff. So it's very much like dialed into that sound, styled that really untamed, just bombastic meltdown even sound,
no pun intended.
Yeah, exactly, literally. And I was always a fan. I think the biggest distinction is that we as Mantic Ritual don't really dive into the extremities of death metal, black metal, things like that. It's like everybody has their source of influence. Jeff's really into progressive music, Dan is very much into punk and crust and things of that sort, so that really comes across into the new style. Even Executioner, there's longer songs, there's shorter songs, there's a lot of elements, especially in his vocal style. Obviously it's 10 plus years since that recording, so but back then you got a lot of grit, you got that more Paul Di'Anno vibe of a vocal style rather than a guttural or an operatic or anything. It's like right in the middle where it's more of a badass vocal sound and style. So that's carrying over here. So I do like that. I don't really need to worry about hauling ass blast beats or and any like intricacies like that. Usually I'm kind of taking almost the power trip approach to the drumming, where it was like, cool, I want to keep the spirit of Executioner, which was not me, and I was a fan of it, you know what I mean? So it's very meat potatoes, serve the song, keep the beat rock solid so people can headbang, circle pit, and get off that way. So I'm not trying to do anything like overly flashy, overly technical. I like to just kind of keep it power of the riff, definitely. So it is nice to have that sense of variety where Warbringer now developed into this completely different animal from like the first few releases, especially on these last two. So drumming wise, that's kind of where my mindset is these days.
And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just going to be completely honest.
Mhm.
The first time I heard the Crusader release, I was like, man, this is kind of almost lackluster. But the more I kept listening to it, I was like, actually, this is really good.
Cool.
Maybe just
Cool.
because I was like trying to compare it to like
That's the
15
immediate
years ago, right?
Mhm.
Like
Everybody expects, to sound
So-
a certain way and the
so-
riffs to sound a certain way. And yeah, I mean, Executioner has this youth and this fucking.
Well, not only that, but the production side of things on that record is
sure.
fucking huge just because it's so
Yeah.
loud. It's a very loud mix.
Yeah.
And this one was not as loud. And Dan's
Mhm.
vocals are kind of pushed back into the mix more.
Fully.
So I would kind of like to know how you guys recorded this and where it actually was recorded.
It was all done remote. So when it came down to the raw tracks, Ben and I got together and rehearsed everything, worked out all our parts. And that's kind of the beauty of it, where him and I can go old school, almost garage, if you will, where it's like, okay, well, we have the click track and we have the scratch vocal and the scratch guitar riff. So now, I'll take us to my studio out in LA and get us on headphones. And I've got, one or two of my boys in the control room, queuing everything up for us. And we'll jam it and we'll record it and we'll listen back and go, oh, what do you think about this fill here? What do you think about this bass line here? What's working in this gap? What's not? We can get pretty meticulous. Like, oh, what about the hi-hat here? Should it be open? Should it be closed? Should I jump to the ride there? Like things like that. It's really cool to just work it out in the moment rather than like tab everything out or program all the drums there. If there's programmed drums, it's the other guys doing it just to get a sense of what the beat should be. And we'll collab on that as well. But the drums were all done here in LA. The bass was all done here in LA by myself and some of my buddies from Presence, actually. So the guitarist Mauricio and the drummer of Presence, Christian, are my brothers, and they've audio heads for sure. You know what I mean? And they still work in the field and do their thing. So they've always been there to help me accomplish whatever work I need to get done. So it's been badass. So I have them, and they're credited on the back of the 7-inch as the engineers for the bass and the drums as well. So we'll do that here, send everything out to Dan and Jeff, and then they'll take care of their parts.
And who actually mixed and mastered this specific thing? Because there's no information on it online. I couldn't find anything on it. So who actually mixed and mastered the Crusader, not only the Crusader track, but obviously the Merciful Fate cover that's on it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the B-side. So once everything was recorded, Dan pretty much took it from there, and he wanted to get his people involved. So he's still out in the Pittsburgh area where he lives and works and does his thing. So he had a good friend of his by the name of Nate as the mix engineer. So I know for a fact that Nate's forte isn't necessarily heavy metal, speed metal, thrash, or anything like that, but he's got a great studio, and it was intentional. Like at first, I was taken aback by the production of this. I was like, well, Executioner is pretty dry, pretty upfront. It sounds very powerful. It sounds very wide and in your face, especially the louder you turn it. And this one, it looks like the artwork. It sounds like you're in this fucking cavern. You know what I mean? Everything is drenched in verb and everything is a big wash and you know what I mean? We had our, say in all that, and we had a back and forth about all that. And, again, we did the same thing, comparing it to the Executioner record, etc. Different time, different resources. It all plays a part, but Dan intentionally didn't want it to sound like a modern metal release. He wanted it to get as far away as he could from the production styles of, say, the new Warbringer, the new Havoc, anything that's like really, really clean, crystal, in your face type of thing. He wanted it to look and sound a certain way and represent the band differently coming out of the gate. Again, he's more rooted in punk, crust, just fucking raw, dirty music overall. The band has always been more of a Kill 'Em All, Melissa vibe rather than anything more extreme from the thrash end of things.
I think the two releases that you just literally just said were this is literally the perfect combination of Kill 'Em All and Melissa, right?
That was always the goal, like mentally, like if you wanted to talk, the core influences of Mantic, it was, Kill 'Em All, Bonded by Blood, Melissa, the records like that's definitely like where it stirs up like
So
the best.
in that aspect, I would say that you guys hit it right on the money.
Cool.
Because it literally kind of sounds, it has that kind of vibe to it. So
Mhm.
again, I'm gonna love this release probably even more. Probably after this interview, I'll go back and
Yeah,
listen to it 100 more
same.
times. And
So it did take the other three of us a while to like really have it click. But once we heard the Merciful Fate cover, first of all, we were all like, "Really? You really want to try to cover Fate? Like, who's gonna sing it?" And then we heard the vocals on it. I don't know if you've heard that yet.
yes, of course.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, dude, I
But
couldn't believe it was Dan. I was like, who the
exactly.
fuck is singing
That's
this?
what I'm saying. Like he did such a good job on it. We were like, wow, okay, so this sound style production really fits this cover. I don't know how well that would translate to the original material, but we gave it a chance, and I think it all suits. But yeah, that cover I think was done really well, and that's one of my favorite things that I've been on, like recorded wise, even though it's a cover and a tribute. But yeah, super badass.
Well, I think the overall vibe of this is really like I said, it took me a couple times to listen. I'm just being honest here
No, that's
because
fine. Please.
I
We
have
did
to
the
be an
same.
honest journalist.
That's right.
So it's like, but after I kept listening to it, and like honestly, dude, I burned the CD with the new Fueled by Fire tracks and
Ooh.
you guys are both signed to M3 Audio, so I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to kind of bring me back to my youth when I was listening to, Fueled by Fire and Mantic
Mm-hmm.
Ritual and the Warbringers and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I just burned a CD and I'm like, I'm going to listen to all of this and see if it translates well. And it actually kind of did. It actually almost sounded like the same record, except
Okay.
with Dan's vocals on the Crusader tracks or whatever. So it was just really cool to see, like, you and them specifically have kind of I wouldn't say a step down by any means of the imagination, but it's almost like you guys are two of the bands that are doing it better than ever in your respective careers. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's kind of
been a
really,
while, so new is always exciting. Like when Fueled by Fire, just to go on a little tangent here, that's related to me specifically. When Fueled by Fire reached out to me and asked me about my if I was doing any mixing or any post-production work, because they had recorded their 4-song EP. They had plans to release it the way that they're doing it now, but they just weren't happy with where it was going, to the point where they were like, we're probably going to trash this or like put it aside. But I took some time and mixed one song. I sent it back, and then they were blown away, and basically said that I was able to bring it new life. So they were really excited. So we kept working on it, and obviously their references were things like that. We're talking early Exodus, Violence, or a source band for them. But they were also giving me, some of the newer bands that have a certain style and production: Plague Years, Power Trip, Red Death, things like that. So again, reverb, reverb and delay on the vocals is a very big thing. So we went that route, and then obviously you hear it in the Mantic Ritual thing as well.
Sure, I'm just saying it all translated well, and I actually forgot that
Cool.
you mixed the Fueled by Fire, so that was just circumstantial questions right there,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's
But
all right.
so I'm just kind of curious, why now for Mantic Ritual? Why was now the right time for Mantic Ritual to get back after all these years? Because you guys could have come back in like the 2013 era, but I know you were also busy with, and it's my personal favorite Warbringer record always.
Right on.
I've always, it is what it is. But I think
Awesome.
Empire's Collapse is my personal favorite. So
Sick.
I know you guys were working really hard on that specific release. Was that the reason why Mantic never kind of got off the grounds? It was just that one show and that was it?
I think it was more of an interest out of the members involved, because there was the second incarnation of Mantic Ritual with a different singer, and they were trying to do a second record, and they were already in recording and mixing and doing all this stuff with it, and it just never came out. It never translated. And then Adam parted ways from the band, and the singer Dave at the time also, split. So it was really just Ben and Jeff, and then they moved out here, and we're just out here in LA doing different things with different people. And I guess it was just that core connection of not having everybody in one place at the time back then, in 2013 when the thing kind of dissolved. But I think it was just a matter of like conversation, wanting to do it for fun, wanting to kind of like reignite it because you enjoy doing it, not putting all this pressure on it of we got to play shows, we got to tour the world, we've got to XYZ down our checklist. It was really just like new music for us, and we're going to share it. So initially it was all going to be DIY. but then I reached out to my manager, who is the president of M Theory Audio, and I was like, hey, this is reforming, just so you know, I'm a part of it. Ben and Jeff are a part of it. You've worked with them plenty before in the past, and we wanted to present it to somebody, just to do it more legitimate than just kind of doing it DIY and out of pocket. You know what I mean? So now it'll actually come out in physical form, and we'll follow it up with more new music. And the goal is to do a new record. And that was like literally first and foremost the first goal. But once we started talking about how to legitimize it and kind of stretch out the activity, that's why we were like, cool, let's kind of reintroduce this little by little, rather than just unload an entire new record when nobody's heard of the band in 10 plus years.
Well, wait. So let me ask you this: what would have happened? I mean, hypothetically speaking, what would have happened if you just right out of the gate released a brand new record? Because I think that would have been so much. I always think, as from a marketing aspect, that would have been the better kind of a solution or whatever, the better kind of way to the better route to go to, instead of releasing a single. And the single would probably get it, some traction like it is now, but having a full-on record would just ignite. I would assume it would ignite more interest than the single. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. The record is the goal, and it still is the goal. So that's written. And we'll be working basically, this is just kind of like a promo campaign, so everybody can kind of get their feet wet again, who haven't been involved in this, like especially Dan, who's been out of this since 2013. So it was more of if we give away too much information at once, it might go unnoticed. But at the same time, it's like, how do we, with the circumstances of us being out here and them being over there, and how do we get this to work and not take so long for something to happen? Because if we were going to invest time and energy into a full record, then it would take, months of writing, months of pre-pro, months of recording remotely, because we're not all going to be in the same place at any one particular studio. And like, oh, we're blocking out this month of our lives to just make this record. Everybody's going to do it at their leisure. You know what I mean? So it just would have taken a hell of a lot longer to get anywhere and get anything done. Like, we probably wouldn't be having this interview because we'd still be working on that record.
Sure.
So then we just kind of took it bit by bit. So I'll be spoiler, but basically we did an EP, so it's 6 songs. We released the first one and the cover. So there's 2 more originals that are recorded, and then there's 2 more covers that are recorded. So in early new year or spring or what have you, 2022, there'll be like a formal 6-song EP from Mantic coming up that will lead into a record. So the record is still the goal, but it's just kind of stretching out the activity, because we're obviously, with the current state of the world, we're not planning on doing crazy tours or anything like that. So music is something that we're just going to continue to release, for the fan base. So we'll start there and see where it goes.
I think it's also for you guys though too, not just the fan base. Let's be a little bit more honest than that, because I know you probably have a lot of fun playing Mantic Ritual stuff and want to be a part of that whole legacy. So
absolutely.
Now, where are you in terms of that, as far as playing goes? Because I know you told me off the air, and again, I don't know how much you want to talk about this specific aspect, but I do want to mention this is all of us have had some health issues, and you're no exception to that. So where are you at in terms of rehabilitating and wanting to get out and playing 24/7?
Yeah, I mean, it's 20 years of drumming, thrashing, all the touring, all the shows, all the road, you know what I mean? And looking after yourself health-wise, kind of accumulated into just overworking myself, especially over the summer, doing all these projects and all these things. So yeah, I sustained an injury in my shoulder, and basically from like the right side of my neck down to my right elbow, that's what I'm seeking therapy on. So I've been doing physical therapy. I've got my chiropractor, my acupuncture therapist. I've got multiple specialists that I'm seeing, etc. So there's an issue, and I'm like making it a priority and taking care of it. But the best way to let myself heal is to not over work it, to exacerbate anything. So the last real session I did behind a drum kit, like full power, was in September. So it's been some time, but I'm following doctor's orders in order to let everything heal. So in due time, I'll be good to go. But I did have to cancel, some Warbringer plans for 2020, etc., just because, trying to rehabilitate, recover, and then immediately go back to playing 60 shows, might be counterproductive, and I'm not particularly worried about the short game. You know what I mean? I'm in this for life, and I'll be doing this forever. So it's, that's kind of my outlook on it.
Can I ask you what has been the most beneficial to your rehabilitation? Has it been the acupuncture? Has it been the the chiropractor,
Mhm.
or what has been the most beneficial to getting you back to what you do best, which is obviously slaying and fucking just
Thanks, man.
wheeling on the drum kit?
Physical therapy. So basically, just learning the ins and outs of where my injury is, and it is a tear in my shoulder. So basically, it no surgery needed, thankfully, but within time it can heal. So basically, what I'm attempting to do with physical therapy is learn the proper exercises and treatments in order to strengthen everything around it in order for it to properly heal fully. But it needs time.
And have they given you kind of your posture always kind of you know what I mean? It kind
Oh
of
yeah.
can help or hurt an injury, or help prevent an injury. So
Mhm.
was your posture, have you had to kind of work on that aspect as far as how you sit on the drum kit, or getting a different kind of stool to you know what I mean, to arch your back, or to sit more straight, or what?
Sure. No,
Have
I
they
think.
kind of taught you any of that stuff, or is that just something you
N
kind of have to learn on your own?
You know, that was something that I was always focused on, and that dates way back. You know, I'm 6'4", so I have to sit a certain way to get my legs a certain distance from the kid and to feel comfortable and to use double bass drumming. And the one story that I tell often is in 2013, we did a tour with Creator and Overkill, and Ventor from Creator was, offside stage watching the set one day, and he was looking at me and he was like, "Well, when you start playing, your back's like this, so you do have good posture, but then sooner or later you start to do this, to do drum fills or to really lay into it, you start to lean forward. So what I would suggest is either lower your seat or raise the drum kit so that way you're always within reach and things like this." So that was a revelation to me of just paying more attention. To the point now where I've developed a different, form of holding the drumstick a certain way to decrease any kind of tension and friction going on over here. To the configuration, the way the toms are set up, the angle the toms are set up at, the cymbals, the angle of the cymbals. So a lot of people have complimented and said that they've noticed, and it's like very relaxed. Shoulders are down, trying to release as much tension. I use a lot of wrist when I play, so that was never a problem. Like it was surprising to me that an injury came about after 20 years of doing it and not having any real issues. But over the summer, I was pretty active with other activities, weightlifting, gym, yoga, boxing, all this other stuff. So I just think it was an overworking myself on top of all the drumming, etc. So there's no real one incident where I'm like, oh, I felt it. Oh, I made a mistake and I like injured myself. I got to stop. It was something where like I started to feel a pain around August, and then it just kind of continued to develop and get worse over time. So I got it checked out. So it was a surprise to me that even happened, but big lesson learned to like pay attention. You know what I mean? And
I do, because
yeah,
I'm going through it. I'm going through it right now. So it's
tendonitis, or what do you feel?
so I've been dealing with it for like almost a year now. So it's just it's a form of tendonitis, but like
Mm,
it's a matter of me stretching more.
good,
Honestly, I'm
good.
finding that like I'm doing more stretching exercises, just and it's been helping me out. So I was just curious, kind of,
Yeah,
your specific thing is relatable
sure,
definitely to what I'm going through. But
sure.
lastly here, I want to thank you very much again for giving me a few minutes of
Oh
your
no,
time
by
to
all
do
means,
this with me, and
as
hopefully we
long
can
as you
do
want to
this.
go, I'm here.
We hopefully we can do this more and more and more, and help promote anything you guys have coming up, just because
Thank you.
obviously we're friends, but I'm a huge fan of pretty
Likewise.
much a lot of stuff that you've done. And obviously you're wearing your Necro Sound t-shirt, another great project that you've done. But where's the best place to support Mantic Ritual specifically? And then obviously I'll get the Warbringer and all those links, but
For sure.
specifically for this interview, I wanted to
Mm,
concentrate more on the Mantic Ritual side of things. But
definitely.
where's the best place to kind of support Mantic Ritual? Do you like sending you guys through the label to kind of give it more credibility, where it's like, oh yeah, we can sell more stuff? So so where can people find this 7-inch single that's coming out within the next few weeks?
Yeah, so the direct way to reach everybody is everybody that handles that thing. Again, I'm just a drummer, so it's it's a weight off of my shoulders not to deal with all that stuff. I let those guys deal with it. So the three of them contribute to the Instagram and are doing the post and are reaching out and responding to messages. So the Instagram and the band's Bandcamp are like the direct sources for information and getting, even if you wanted original copies of the Meltdown Executioner, I know Dan still has a bunch of that, and he's like selling those and T-shirts and things like that on the Bandcamp. So as well as the new stuff and the continuously new stuff that will be released in the future. The Bandcamp would be like the primary source for all of that, and then the content stuff would be on the band's Instagram.
And then obviously M Theory Audio. We should mention them because it's
no, by all means. I mean, I've been working with Marco basically the entire professional career that I've had since like 06, 07, back from the Hexen days, and him helping us out and doing that thing, and obviously translating into Warbringer and everything else under the sun, the Ex Mortis stuff, the Skeletal Remains stuff, all these bands that he did end up signing, Fuel by Fire, Mantic, doing the Hexen reissues. He's been a godsend, but him and I just have a great working relationship where we set a goal, we get it done, we put it out.
That's the best way, man. And I think it's almost, again, you're almost making me feel old because I'm like, oh yeah, our records are like 10 plus years old now.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
mm-hmm.
But hopefully the next generation of metal bands can do obviously what we've been doing, and
mm-hmm.
hopefully we can strive to inspire the next generation as all the bands that inspired us did. So
absolutely.
Carlos, I want to thank you very much again for giving me a few minutes of your time to help me promote this killer new single, Crusader, which comes out within the next few weeks here. You can get it on M Theory Audio. I think it's mtheoryaudio.com or manticritualthrash.bandcamp.com. I know those are two places where obviously you can get it. And Carlos, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime, Tanner. No, it's always a joy being on this Poppitt's Corner.
I appreciate it. Well, for another episode, guys, we're out. Cheers.